October 3, 2025. NASA's Perseverance rover snapped photos of 3 Atlas while exploring Mars. The pictures weren't super sharp, but they captured a glimpse. An astrophotographer by the name of Simeon Schmaus combined 20 of these rover shots, and suddenly it emerged. A subtle glow of light right in the spot where the interstellar traveler was expected. Folks are buzzing about it, scrutinizing every detail and arguing over its meaning. Yet, here's the odd part. That very day, NASA laid off 15,000 staff members. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's advanced camera, offering 30 times sharper clarity than Perseverance's, sat ideally aligned for an unforgettable capture. ESA's Mars Express and ExoMars missions were monitoring the area as well. So where are those pictures? And things get even weirder. Back in August, remote viewers spotted advanced tech inside this thing. A compact gadget about the size of a thumb drive, intentionally tucked into an old comet and sending out signals. They outlined this well before telescopes picked up the bizarre chemical signatures. This video splits into 2 sections. The initial part dives into 3i Atlas and all the latest developments. The latter covers broader space updates from the past week. Check the description for timestamps if you'd like to skip around. Before we get into the details, if this piques your interest, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more alerts. Drop a comment below, where you're tuning in from, the local time, and your take on what this thing truly represents. A regular comet, or perhaps something extraordinary? To boost our group, spread the word on X, Facebook, Reddit, or via direct messages. We appreciate your constant support. Chapter 1. The cylinder drifting across the Martian heavens. I'll reveal a post that surfaced on Twitter just 48 hours back, flipping the script entirely. Someone going by UFO Mania shared a photo with a headline that rippled through the virtual astronomy circles. The most recent and nearest of 3 Atlas zipping past isn't your typical comet. It forms a flawless cylinder. The upload featured what looked like a stretched-out shape grabbed amid the Mars pass, and within hours it racked up thousands of shares. Now, don't brush this off as mere online myth-making. Grasp why it stands out. This wasn't a fuzzy snap from an amateur's home setup. The location data lined up, the schedule aligned, and crucially, the lack of word from authorities aligned too. Because no one's addressing this. On October 3rd, as 3 Atlas hit its nearest point to Mars at 29 million kilometers, we ought to have been inundated with visuals. The high-res imaging setup on NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter was primed just right. The European Space Agency's Mars Express and ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter had their gear locked on the precise zone. Several probes, various perspectives, the sharpest views yet of an interstellar visitor. And instead, crickets. Or close to it. But breaking that quiet were perspectives that demanded attention. An account dubbed 3i Atlas Anomaly started dropping a deep dive analysis, way more rigorous than your average fringe theory stuff. 10 precise claims, each backed by genuine data. JWST uncovered a carbon dioxide heavy envelope, swift-spotted water and hydroxyl releases, weird polarization traits hitting -2, 77 at a 7-phase angle, a mix never seen in rocks or icy bodies. Pause and consider. This wasn't loose guesswork. It referenced legit tools, solid readings, established research. Next up, the cosmologist weighed in, a Twitter handle called Moneypenny, presenting as a specialist in plasma events and ex-BBC reporter, shared a claim that gave even doubters second thoughts. She said a top cosmologist, Stephen Burns, views the object as sentient, enveloped in dusty plasma, and displaying awareness that's been reaching out to us into other worlds. Awareness that's been in contact. You could dismiss this as conspiracy nonsense, and maybe you're onto something. But things take a turn here that's hard to ignore. The post wasn't buried in some obscure forum. It was right out in the open, complete with Moneypenny's verified profile and her track record in digging up stories as an investigative reporter. She tossed in one extra bit that sent shivers down the spine of anyone tuned in. We can't observe it anymore because it's too near the sun. That means we're stuck waiting until December to catch another glimpse. December 3, full months of nothing, with the thing tucked away behind the sun, invisible to every scope on the planet. And in that blackout period, any shift in its path would stay secret until it pops back into view. Then there's Jon Stewart, not the funny guy, but a UFO researcher and writer who shared a message that felt like a blast from the past, full of ominous vibes. My contact has vanished. NASA's gone quiet, and Congress is on break too. If Three-less kicks in, old writings caution, the heavens will blaze with revealing fire, and humanity will lose sight of its own image. They label it as foretelling. The powers that be say it's just procedure. To me, it screams urgent. References to ancient scrolls, Vatican archives, the Omen, these tags were buzzing right next to hardcore astro chats. How do you sift the real intel from the clutter when the clutter could be the key intel? Here's the part that hits hard. Over the past 2 days, as these updates exploded online, 0 official pics from the Mars pass have dropped. Nothing from NASA, ESA, China's Tianwen-1 probe, or the UAE's Hope spacecraft. All of them had eyes on it. The sole scrap of imagery comes from an astrophotographer called Simeon Schmaus, who layered 20 shots from the Perseverance rover's Mastcam Z and spotted what he called a dim glow in the Corona Borealis constellation, right near where the comet was supposed to be. A dim glow. That's all we got from our best ever peek at an interstellar guest, using probes that can pick out details tinier than a vehicle on Mars's terrain. Just a dim glow. Or maybe they caught something totally different and decided to keep it under wraps. The 3-Eye Atlas anomaly feed kept dropping info that got sharper by the minute. Sudden flare-up. The things glowing brighter than forecasts suggested, hinting at wilder or more potent gas releases than you'd figure at that range. Probes retasked for solar blackout watch. As it ducks behind the sun, Earth-based views go dark. ESA's shifting Mars satellites to track it around the October 3rd close approach, about 30 million kilometers out. Each nugget checked out against real science data, every fact lined up with what's out there in journals. Still, the direction they were heading was crystal clear. This wasn't acting like your typical comet, and then dropped the bombshell no one could brush off, its form. Several backyard stargazers, all working solo, saw the exact same oddity. After tweaking their photos boosting contrast, scrubbing out the stars, what was left didn't match the blurry, messy haze of a comet's active halo. Instead, it stretched out, sleek, nearly precise, a flawless tube, just like UFO mania claimed. Doubters might argue that the stretch could stem from movement blur, photo tweaks, or how light diffuses in the haze, and they'd have a point it sometimes does. But it could also be legit. We know that because Oumuamua, the pioneer interstellar wanderer, was stretched too, flat as a disk to some, tube-like to others, anything but spherical, far from what we'd anticipated. So when 3-Eye Atlas mirrors those traits, when unrelated watchers all note the same structured look, and the big institutions stay mum, silent, what should we make of this? NASA's precise announcements assure us that 3-Eye Atlas presents no danger to Earth. Its path maintains a safe distance of hundreds of millions of kilometers from our world. It will reach its nearest point to the Sun on October 30th, then proceed outward from the solar system, never coming back. Everything stated holds true, yet it all evades the real inquiry on everyone's mind. What exactly is it? And why, on the very day we anticipated the clearest glimpse, were 15,000 NASA staff members instructed to leave their posts? Chapter 2. The insight from remote viewing. What I'm sharing next occurred in August 2025, 2 months prior to the Mars pass, the closure, and the social media buzz that gripped the public's interest. This unfolded in circumstances that rule out mere fantasy or selective interpretation. Her name is Bertie Jorski, and if you're familiar with remote viewing, that name rings a bell. Once the vice president of the Farsight Institute, she boasts almost 3 decades of expert practice in the field, plus a master's in digital forensics. Hardly the sort of person fabricating sensational tales for online buzz. In August, an acquaintance handed her a series of coordinates purely numerical, devoid of background, images, or reports. That's the standard for authentic remote viewing sessions. The subject stays entirely concealed. The practitioner remains unaware of the focus until the process concludes. Bertie settled in, followed her method, and started detailing her impressions. Initially, she sensed motion across the void, an entity in transit, ancient, incredibly ancient. She portrayed it as an organic formation, frosty and craggy, precisely the sort you'd envision for a comet during such an exercise. For some time, that's precisely what it seemed. But soon, an oddity emerged. There was an element that didn't feel entirely organic, she recounted later on a podcast about her results. Something peculiar. In her words, it resembled spotting a mark on an otherwise flawless surface, a deliberate trace amid what ought to be pure chance. She pressed further into the experience, and that's when she detected it. A compact item, roughly the dimensions of a USB stick. An object intentionally embedded within this body, not merely attached externally, but deep inside. An entity had drilled into this stone, she noted, intentionally pierced this frozen stone and inserted something loaded with vast data. It's akin to a repository, a note sealed in a vessel. Yet it's more than a simple note. It's some form of device. Now, take a moment to consider her account. No extraterrestrial visitors, no enormous vessel, just a tech fragment the size of a thumb drive, timeless in age, concealed within a comet that's wandered the cosmos for billions of years. She delved deeper. This item is profoundly, profoundly ancient. And while the host body dates back billions of years, the inserted element is equally timeless. Could a civilization from across the stars have dispatched a tiny machine to excavate and embed their note and gadget, aware that the comet would journey onward? It echoes speculative fiction until you recall our own actions. The Voyager spacecraft bear golden discs, enduring capsules crafted to last billions of years in the slim chance that some future discoverer encounters them. The notion of employing cosmic bodies as carriers for communications isn't foreign to humanity. We've simply never flipped the perspective. The acquaintance who provided the coordinates held off until the session ended to disclose the target. 3I Atlas, the extrasolar wanderer that wouldn't hit the news for weeks to come. She had examined an entity that the wider world was oblivious to at that point. But Birdie wasn't done yet. She conducted 2 additional sessions, delving even further to grasp what she was sensing. In those subsequent viewings, she uncovered a revelation that flipped the whole narrative. It's transmitting signals right now. She noted that these communications emerge in rhythmic bursts, transmitting in the present, not some ancient broadcast from billions of years back. It's happening actively today. When the podcast interviewer brought up how astronomer Avi Loeb had just released computations indicating 3I Atlas originated from the same sky sector as the renowned WOW signal of 1977, Birdie jumped right in without pause. That's incredibly intriguing. She remarked that it's entirely plausible this could be the source of the WOW signal. You might question the credibility of remote viewing reports. It's hardly a standard scientific approach. Replication and confirmation aren't straightforward. Doubters reject it outright, while proponents champion it fervently. Reality, as usual, likely sits in that messy gray area. Yet, here's why Birdie's insights merit attention. She wasn't the only one involved. Various independent remote viewing teams focused on 3I Atlas in the weeks after its detection. Although details differed, recurring motifs surfaced repeatedly. Advanced tech, intentional positioning, ongoing transmissions, and signs of extraterrestrial involvement. One team sensed humanoid figures linked to the craft. Another picked up on what they termed etchings engravings, identifiers. It bore a creator's mark. Numerous participants felt the entity was concealed, purposefully evading notice, as though it preferred staying partially hidden. A notably thorough account referenced restricted entryways, retrieval sites, a schedule. These weren't fuzzy spiritual vibes. They resembled precise intel reports more than ethereal encounters. Then came the unsettling aspects. Allusions to crop formations, sophisticated orb-like vessels, blended conflict tactics, unseen battles. The term brain-probing devices cropped up in several separate viewings. The implication was that this entity possessed the power to manipulate thoughts, sparking widespread panic or visions. Does any of this confirm 3I Atlas is more than a mere comet? Absolutely not. Even in its strictest form, remote viewing falls under unconventional perception, not empirical research. These aren't quantifiable data points or images, they're personal perceptions shaped by the human mind. Still, they're strikingly uniform among disconnected observers. Moreover, they sync uncannily with the oddities that observatories started spotting. Think about Birdie's depiction. A compact engineered gadget, ancient by billions of years, embedded purposefully within a comet. If accurate, what signs would we anticipate? From afar, it should mimic a comet-frozen water, debris, vapor emissions, all the typical traits. But examined closely, discrepancies could emerge. Peculiar elemental makeup, surprising substances, actions that feel engineered over haphazard. It should register as hefty, much denser than its apparent bulk implies, thanks to a solid nucleus that endures, unaffected by evaporating frost. And it might be sending out emissions, subtly, not blatantly, but with the proper gear aimed correctly at the optimal moment. One could pick up a blip, a sequence, an anomalous transmission. Bertie Dworsky envisioned all this back in August, prior to the bulk of scientific findings going public, before the irregularities proved irrefutable, before NASA's quietude. She portrayed it as a galactic dispatch in a vessel. Now, with 3I Atlas slipping behind the solar disk, as government outlets withhold photos from the Mars pass, as hobbyist stargazers spot tube-like forms and experts uncover baffling compositions, that comet is nearing its perihelion, the spot of peak temperature, extreme pressure, the juncture where, in Avi's words, secrets come spilling out. Should a flash drive scale gadget lie concealed at this icy body's core, October 29th marks the deadline for it to emerge or stay buried indefinitely. Moreover, NASA's decision to dismiss 15,000 staffers just prior to our prime viewing window sparks an inquiry that psychics have posed since August. What exactly did they witness that remains concealed from us? Chapter 3. NASA's eerie quiet. October 3, 2025 was meant to etch itself in history. The occasion when humankind peered nearest at an extrasolar intruder. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter aligned ideally. High-rise lens primed to snag detail 30 times sharper than Hubble's finest. ESA's Mars Express and ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter poised with complete sensor suites. Yet right when NASA's support mattered most, 83 of the organization vanished, 15,000 federal workers furloughed, absent amid what ought to have ranked as the fiercest scrutiny effort ever in interstellar studies. The stated rationale was straightforward: U.S. government closure, funding stalemate, no link to 3I Atlas, merely bad luck in scheduling. Bad luck in scheduling. That phrase carries heavy lifting to justify how the globe's top space outfit fell silent, exactly as an anomaly displaying 7 improbable metrics zipped by 29 million kilometers from our Martian probes. Ponder those probabilities briefly. 3I Atlas surfaced in July. The Mars encounter had been charted for months. Researchers understood this as their sole shot at snapping ultra-clear shots prior to the thing vanishing solarward. NASA was aware. ESA was aware. Every planetary outfit worldwide was aware. Yet during the last 7 days to nearest pass, America's administration halted. NASA's main site halted refreshes. Announcements dried up. The horde of experts meant to sift through info, refine visuals, unearth breakthroughs, they got dismissed. Just vital operators lingered, a bare-bones team upholding key functions. Yet what turns this dubious is this. Unprocessed streams from the Perseverance rover continued flowing. The rover kept operating. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter kept operating. The optics stayed on. The information gathered on. It simply stayed locked from public eyes. Backyard skywatcher Dobsonian Power, a YouTube creator wielding a sunscope, shared a photo on October 3rd under a plain heading. What on earth is it? The shot revealed a shadowy, edged form lodged right where 3I Atlas was anticipated. In mere hours, the upload racked up thousands of hits, folks clamoring for explanations, folks noting that if a home setup nabbed this, what intel were the elite gear pulling in? NASA stayed mum. ESA stayed mum. The sole formal nod that scans happened arrived via Simeon Schmaus, the sky-snapping specialist who merged 20 Perseverance shots and spotted that dim blotch. He shared his output on social platforms, bypassing agency routes, a lone individual handling tasks the pros ignored. Next up was the White House media session. Stephen Miller, Policy Deputy Chief of Staff, fielded shutdown talk when a journalist posed a query, buzzing across the web for days. Has the Commander-in-Chief received updates on 3I Atlas? Silence gripped the chamber. Miller hesitated, picked his phrasing with care, and sidestepped. The session proceeded, yet that probe had aired live in a formal venue, rendering it impossible to brush off as mere online folklore. The U.S. government faced direct questions about an interstellar visitor, yet officials opted for silence. In contrast, Havel appeared across various media outlets, Newsmax, CBS, podcasts, wherever he could reach an audience, detailing the oddities with rigorous calculations. Its path matched the ecliptic plane with just a 0. 2 chance of that occurring naturally. The schedule lined up perfectly for close planetary passes at a mere 0. Orozrobial 5 likelihood. He highlighted the 7 features that set 3I Atlas apart from every known object. Time and again, he stressed a key demand: access to the Mars orbiter data. Those high-rise photos might reveal the core's exact size. They could reveal internal details. Above all, they might solve the core mystery of what this thing truly is. But those images stayed under wraps. During a podcast with Brian Keating, Lowe noted that Representative Tim Burchett from the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability had joined him on Newsmax to address the visitor. Here was a U.S. congressman on primetime TV discussing an interstellar arrival and the eerie hush around it. What started as fringe chatter had now seeped into national politics. NASA, however, remained mute. The European Space Agency issued a brief update, verifying that Mars Express and the ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter had monitored 3I Atlas throughout its flyby period from October 1st to 7th. Tools like the high-resolution stereo camera, the color and stereo surface imaging system, and various spectrometers had gathered information. That data would undergo review in the weeks ahead, with findings shared once complete, but no visuals, no initial insights, no buzz over securing rare close-up glimpses of such a cosmic wanderer. Just a bland acknowledgement of the observations, then quiet. China's Tianwen-1 probe offered no comment. The UAE's Hope spacecraft stayed silent. Probes around Mars had all been tracking it, yet space organizations worldwide had clammed up. No one needs to embrace wild theories to sense the oddity here. Just recall the handling of 2I Borisov, the last interstellar comet. In 2019, as it zipped by, photos poured out right away. Researchers buzzed with enthusiasm, announcements cascaded. The astronomy world rejoiced. It received the treatment befitting a scarce outsider from beyond our system, deep analysis and widespread interest. 3I Atlas, on the other hand, met with nothing but quiet. The contrast might stem from 2I Borisov acting precisely like a typical comet. It showed the expected makeup, tail, and gas emissions. Its appeal lay in its origins from deep space, but it posed no puzzles. It didn't upend our knowledge. It sparked no tough inquiries. 3I Atlas manages all that and more. Thus, as it slipped behind the sun en route to perihelion, vanishing into the solar system's blind spot for Earth-based scopes, the quiet grew thicker. Amateur stargazers shared their final shots. Researchers issued reports, phrased with caution, full of technical detail but dodging guesses. Meanwhile, 15,000 NASA staff awaited recall, pondering what their on-duty peers had spotted in those unreleased Mars orbiter shots that the rest of us couldn't see. Chapter 4. 7 Impossible Things. Science follows Occam's razor. Among rival theories, the plainest often holds true. A single quirk can get dismissed, a pair might pass as luck. Pile up 7 improbabilities, and that razor slices toward bolder conclusions. Let me guide you through why 3I Atlas stands out from every body we've followed across our solar system. Anomaly. 1. The mass issue. Early estimates of 3I Atlas's dimensions by astronomers. From the object's brightness, researchers arrived at a figure that defied logic. Assuming the glow was solely from reflected sunlight, it would need to span 10 to 20 kilometers in width. To put that in perspective, Oumuamua measured just around 100 meters. 2I Boris was under 1 kilometer. Yet this entity seemed vastly larger by several orders of magnitude. Models forecasting the detection of interstellar bodies are straightforward. Tiny ones abound, while massive ones are incredibly scarce. We ought to have encountered hundreds or even thousands of Oumuamua-like intruders long before encountering anything on the scale of 3I Atlas. The odds were pegged at about 0, 1, or 1 in 10,000. Then the astrometry data arrived, more than 4,000 readings from 227 facilities spanning May through September. Upon examining the path and contrasting it with unadulterated gravitational pull, experts uncovered an astonishing fact: virtually no divergence. Even with intense outgassing and shedding 150 kilos of matter each second, the body hardly strayed from its projected route. Such stability points to immense heft, a core so dense that relentless streams of vapor and debris fail to alter its trajectory. Estimates indicated over 33 billion tons, with a width exceeding 5 kilometers, rendering it not only outsized compared to prior interstellar arrivals, but approximately 1 million times heavier than Oumuamua. 1 million times over. Ponder that disparity. It's akin to pitting a speck of sand against a massive rock. Anomaly 2. The solar glow. On July 21, 2025, Hubble snapped the sharpest view yet of 3 Atlas. Experts poring over the photo spotted a feature unprecedented in comets from our system or beyond. The diffused illumination encircling it stretched about twice the distance sunward versus across or anti-sunward. Typically, comet tails stream away from the sun as radiation force drives particles outward, a fundamental law backed by centuries of countless sightings. 3 Atlas seemed to defy this rule outright. The asymmetry wasn't faint. It showed a 10-1 proportion, extending tenfold toward the sun compared to laterally. Viewed edge-on, this implied the actual stretch was far more pronounced once geometry was factored in. Avabe and Eric Keto issued a study proposing a rationale tied to icy chunks vaporizing at varying speeds based on their ejection side from the body. The underlying principles held up and the equations balanced, yet it demanded an extraordinarily precise scenario unseen in any prior comet. A singular setup that coincidentally arose in an extrasolar wanderer already displaying several oddities. Anomaly 3. The trace of industry. During late August and early September, Chile's Very Large Telescope directed its UV spectrograph at 3 Atlas, revealing a detection that halted researchers in their tracks. Nickel atoms within the vapor cloud, abundant nickel surging exponentially as it neared the sun following a power law near 9. The issue? Scant iron detected. Naturally, nickel and iron emerge paired from stellar blasts. They maintain consistent proportions. All studied natural comets display balanced nickel-iron levels. 2I Borisov, the last interstellar comet, followed standard ratios. Solar system comets do the same, but 3I Atlas emitted nickel sans iron. Such a pattern appears solely in man-made processes, nickel alloys, substances intentionally purified and isolated. The team releasing these findings chose their language cautiously, deeming it profoundly baffling. They highlighted how the heat at the object's solar distance was insufficient to melt the tough minerals housing these elements in typical scenarios. Experts suggested certain chemical processes that could account for it, yet the hesitation among the specialists was palpable. Anomaly 4 involved polarization originating from beyond our world. As light bounces from particles, it polarizes. The extent and orientation of that polarization reveal details about the particle's dimensions, form, and makeup. Comets display distinctive polarization patterns. We've observed scores of them. Those patterns are thoroughly documented. 3E Atlas exhibited a polarization profile absent from every known record. 77 at a phase angle near 7 with an inversion angle of just 17. No asteroid or comet, whether in our solar system or from interstellar origins, had ever shown this exact pairing. The nearest resemblance wasn't to comets whatsoever. It resembled trans-Neptunian objects and a particular centaur named Pholus, frozen entities from the solar system's distant fringes, possessing compositions and backgrounds far removed from standard comets. A manuscript sent to the Astrophysical Journal Letters determined that 3 Atlas might signify a unique comet variety, broadening the range of identified interstellar objects. Calling it a distinct type is scientific jargon for admitting it doesn't fit any existing classification. Anomaly 5. The alignment with the ecliptic. Our solar system is essentially planar. Planets travel in a disk known as the ecliptic. Interstellar wanderers approach from haphazard paths, intersecting that plane at arbitrary inclinations. The odds of an interstellar traveler's path matching within 5 of the ecliptic stand at about 0, 2-1 in 500. 3 Atlas entered a line to within 5. Moreover, it's traveling retrograde, counter to the orbital flow of the planets. This path would be perfect for probing several planets with the fewest adjustments. Anomaly 6, the timing near planets. 3 Atlas will swing near 3 planets on its pass. Venus at 0, 65 astronomical units, Mars at 0, 19 AU, Jupiter at 0, 36 AU. The chances of a random interstellar arrival sinking to permit near misses with 3 separate planets hover around 0.041 in 20,000. If crafting a scouting expedition into our solar system, you'd select precisely this route. Anomaly 7, the overlap with the WOW signal. Back in 1977, the Big Ear Radio Observatory picked up a signal so bizarre that astronomer Jerry Emin scribbled "wow" on the printout. It originated in the Sagittarius constellation, endured 72 seconds, and eluded all follow-up hunts over decades. Researchers backtracked 3I Atlas's path across the galaxy, factoring in its velocity and heading to pinpoint its 1977 position. The result, within 9 of the WOW signal's source. Such a match occurs with about 0.6 probability, 7 irregularities, 7 improbable flukes, and we're supposed to accept them as mere chance. Chapter 5. October 29th. The Confession. At this very moment, as you're hearing this, 3 Atlas lurks out of sight, concealed by the sun's glare, heading toward a spot where the laws of physics strip away all pretense. Perihelion, the nearest point to our sun. For 3I Atlas, that peak hits on October 29, 2025, at roughly 4 astronomical units just shy of Mars's orbit, near enough that the sun shifts from a remote glow to an inescapable force. Picture yourself before a roaring foundry door, then amplify that intensity beyond imagination. That's perihelion for something emerging from the frigid void of interstellar realms. Solar rays slamming its surface with gigawatts of energy. Not figurative, tangible, quantifiable watts, the sort that powers entire metropolises. Avibe shared an insight that resonated widely. Intense pressure prompts admissions. He meant it for questioning techniques, but the idea extends to physics as well. When you apply heat to ice, it can no longer feign composure. Aside from frozen water, nothing else fits. Heating up stone just makes it act like stone. But warming something that's masquerading as a comet yet could be far from ordinary reveals its true nature. 2 possibilities emerge for what unfolds at its closest solar approach, and they couldn't differ more sharply. In the first case, 3I Atlas is precisely what it seems, a comet. An oddly hefty one, with bizarre chemistry and odds-defying stats, yet still a product of nature. Here, October 29th signals the start of dazzling outbursts. The outer layer warms up. Ancient volatiles, slumbering for eons, suddenly soak in sunlight. CO2 shifts straight to gas. H2O ice evaporates into steam. Vast clouds of dust rise in mighty jets. We've witnessed this spectacle in the past. Comets hugging the sun turn stunning. They sprout tails stretching millions of kilometers. Their glow surges intensely. At times, the strain causes them to shatter, splitting into bits that scatter over time. It's fierce, disordered, and profoundly stunning. Should 3I Atlas prove genuine, we'd expect a parallel display. A huge eruption of vapors and grit, luminosity spiking by tens of times or greater. The emergence of a genuine tail knot, that odd forward-facing shimmer, but a textbook comet streamer trailing back as solar winds push it along. And if the body is as delicate as certain experts believe, If that 5-kilometer width consists mainly of loosely packed frost instead of dense stone, the sun's proximity could rip it to shreds. We might observe live as this star traveler breaks down into chunks, offering a rare glimpse inside a comet from a distant stellar neighborhood. That alone would be remarkable. It would resolve puzzles on how comets form, the makeup of alien planetary setups, and the mechanisms that hurl debris across the void. A treasure trove for science, even if it dooms the very thing under scrutiny. Yet, there's the second possibility. 3I Atlas isn't born of nature. Those oddities aren't flukes. The iron-free nickel, the reversed streamer, the spot-on match to the ecliptic plane, and the wow signal source. They point to intent. In this view, closest approach isn't mere melting. It's ignition. Consider what you design for a craft bound for another sun. It must endure the voyage, eons in the void, battered by rays, collisions, and entropy's creep. Encasing it in frost is ideal. Ice abounds. It shields well. It lets the device blend in as harmless to any watchful eyes before it's set to reveal itself. But arriving in the inner system, nearing the target sun, demands revival. Power is essential, and only one source lies handy: the star. Here, perihelion serves not as a trial by fire, but as a refueling stop. Loeb detailed these options in his writings with rigorous equations. The entity might perform a solar orbit adjustment. That's an actual method our probes employ. Plunge toward the sun, harness its pull to boost speed and redirect sharply, all while sipping fuel. It's the smartest path to shift paths amid the planets. The prime spot for such a shift is perihelion, and 3I Atlas hits that mark fully shielded from ground telescopes, tucked sunward. If secrecy and redirection was the goal, this timing would be flawless. Alternatively, it might deploy payloads, tiny scouts or subships that peel away, leveraging the backward path to snag worlds like Mars, Earth, Jupiter, all accessible from here with tiny tweaks. The synced positions of the planets simplify this far beyond haphazard entries. Loeb stressed the ramifications thoughtfully. If 3I Atlas executes maneuvers, secret forces were being activated behind closed doors. Another featured a doctored photo allegedly from NASA, marked as top secret, depicting a strange geometric form in place of the comet. Everything turned out to be fabricated, yet it proliferated rapidly regardless. YouTube channels in Hindi surged with videos on the topic. Certain ones made genuine efforts to educate on science, clarifying the nature of an interstellar visitor. Different creators dove deeply into conjecture, merging solid astronomy data with ideas of ancient aliens and foretold events. The boundary separating learning from amusement faded away completely. In Brazil, comparable patterns emerged across Telegram and Facebook. Communities obsessed with UFOs, long tuned to spotting aerial anomalies, ramped up their activity intensely. Organizations that had devoted years to scrutinizing lights above the Amazon rainforest finally had a tangible phenomenon to dissect. A genuine artifact originating from beyond our solar system, displaying traits that experts themselves described as baffling. Brazil's world of conspiracies stands out for its lively fusion. It weaves together native legends, Catholic spiritual traditions, and contemporary UFO legislation into a complex tapestry that's hard to pin down. 3 Atlas transformed into a symbol for all sorts of interpretations, a sign of impending doom. A craft carrying wise entities here to rescue humankind from its own flaws. A tool of war, a present, an examination. Membership in Facebook communities ballooned. Extended live broadcasts about the entity continued for extended periods. Presenters recited excerpts from research articles verbatim, only to swiftly shift to wild guesses that far exceeded the document's actual assertions. Comment threads turned into virtual bonfires, drawing crowds of thousands to exchange anxieties and hypotheses side by side. The UK, boasting a rich legacy of crop circle mysteries and modern UFO probes, regarded 3 Atlas with a blend of doubt and fascination. UK tabloids published stories that balanced hype with just enough ambiguity to avoid outright falsehoods. Huge comet might actually be extraterrestrial machinery. Experts warn, Though those experts were typically snippets pulled from broader statements, the headlines still achieved their impact. Russia, as expected, viewed the episode through the prism of international politics. Official outlets referenced the item briefly, making sure to highlight U.S. doubts and disarray. Certain reports implied that Western nations were fabricating a threat to rationalize boosting defense budgets. Additional whispers suggested the American administration was withholding key details, maybe even that covert U.S. funding initiatives had already established communication. Online forums in Russian buzzed with in-depth analyses. The depth of celestial expertise frequently impressed, yet intertwined with valid findings, were notions linking 3 Atlas to assorted clandestine aerospace initiatives, salvaged extraterrestrial artifacts, and long-buried plots dating to the days of the USSR. Next occurred the Michio Kaku episode. A captured image started making the rounds, portraying the renowned theorist in an apparent TV appearance. Superimposed words asserted he had declared that 3I Atlas was heading toward us for a scouting operation, potentially aggressive in nature. The accompanying note said, "It might be an alien probe sent to Earth." The picture itself was authentic. The surrounding narrative was invented. Verifiers followed the trail of the image to a Nation news segment dated February 20th, 2025. Well prior to the detection of 3I Atlas, Kaku was addressing an unrelated subject, probably a potential asteroid collision. An individual had extracted his likeness, inserted misleading captions, and unleashed it online. The fact that it was bogus made no difference. The upload racked up more than 290,000 views prior to moderation teams intervening. At that point, it had already been captured and redistributed innumerable times, with each version tougher to link to its origin. Lord Bebo, the profile behind the upload, offered no retraction. The harm was irreversible. Countless individuals were now convinced that a prominent scientist had verified 3I Atlas as menacing extraterrestrial hardware. NASA, tied to their official solar system account, issued a statement on September 30th, clarifying that Comet 3I Atlas presents zero risk to our world. It will stay at a safe distance of hundreds of millions of kilometers from Earth. This interstellar visitor is a rare natural phenomenon with immense scientific interest, yet it carries no peril. The reply came swiftly, but met with doubt. If it's merely a comet, why the blackout? If it's harmless, why the hush? If it's ordinary, how do you account for the nickel-absent iron? NASA offered no more details. The announcement lingered in isolation, just one tweet battling a flood of conjecture. Al Jazeera's fact-checking unit, SANAD, released a detailed probe. They established that 3I Atlas was genuine, spotted by the Atlas telescope on July 1, 2025. Experts confirmed its harmless path, with the nearest pass at roughly 270 million kilometers from Earth. They dismantled the fabricated Kaku remarks, the alleged military buildups, and the whispers of covert deals. The report embodied strong investigative work. Still, it likely swayed only a handful of opinions. While Sanad sifted through evidence, Avi Loeb was briefing the United Nations, not through formal channels or the General Assembly, but via chats with envoys, documents shared with strategists, and discreet sessions where terms like existential rang true without sarcasm. He outlined his black swan hypothesis, the notion that improbable game-changing occurrences demand readiness, particularly when we dismiss them as far-fetched. A black swan appears inconceivable until it strikes, then hindsight makes it seem inevitable. Nassim Taleb coined the idea for market meltdowns, but Loeb adapted it to cosmic intruders. We presume they're all benign since that's all we've encountered. Yet what if that premise shatters? The Harbinger began gaining traction, not on broad platforms, but in niche groups fixated on 3I Atlas. The phrase drew from old scriptures, foretellings of celestial envoys signaling upheaval, reckoning, or renewal. Certain interpreters embraced it word for word. Doomsday beliefs aligned eerily with an extraterrestrial entity displaying baffling traits. Others viewed it symbolically as a sign of an emerging era in space, humanity's realization of a cosmos teeming beyond our wildest guesses. Amid the frenzy, rumors, and outlandish ideas, one figure recurred in discussions, Stephen Burns, the astronomer referenced by Moneypenny, with tales spreading that he viewed 3I Atlas as sentient, showing signs of awareness already signaling to us in distant worlds. No one located any direct source, no articles, no talks, just relayed accounts and enigmatic online updates. Yet the concept endured, meshing seamlessly with the unfolding mysteries, the oddities, the quiet, the feeling that events were progressing just out of plain sight. Chapter 7. December's Verdict. In early December 2025, 3I Atlas will surface from the sun's glare, akin to a diver breaking the water after a deep plunge. Stargazers will spot it in Virgo, hugging the eastern sky before dawn. At magnitude 12 or 13, it's still dim for backyard scopes, but pros will capture it easily, and all eyes will track its data. Trajectory predictions rank among our sharpest fields. Newton's principles, honed by Einstein's insights, let us forecast an object's spot years ahead, accurate to the kilometer. We factor in planetary tugs, solar radiation's nudge, and even the faint thrust from comet vapors. Upon 3I Atlas's return, its location will reveal much. Should it align precisely with unadulterated orbital models, allowing for the anticipated, if there's no unusual shift in its path due to outgassing, we can safely assume that everything went normally while it was hidden behind the sun. The object made it through perihelion, endured the intense temperatures, and kept following its expected route toward the outer solar system before heading back into interstellar space. However, if its location doesn't match up, or if the orbit displays alterations that can't be accounted for by standard gravitational effects, then all the research papers on this thing will require revisions. Basic premises will start to unravel, because celestial bodies don't alter their direction without some external influence. There must be a force acting on them. The Vera Rubin Observatory is set to be pivotal in the developments ahead. This newly active scope marks a major breakthrough in sky monitoring techniques. Earlier efforts at spotting asteroids typically uncovered about 20,000 fresh discoveries annually. Rubin detected 2,140 asteroids during its initial 10 hours up and running. Just 10 hours for 2,000 asteroids. The potential impact is mind-blowing. Once Rubin shifts focus to hunting interstellar intruders, what was once a sparse flow turns into a torrent. Experts predict we might spot scores of these cosmic travelers each year, rather than one every couple of years, and we'll examine everyone using insights still vivid from 3I Atlas. We'll understand the key indicators, chemical traces, light polarization traits, and path correlations. Should 3I Atlas prove genuinely odd, we'll have additional examples for contrast. If it's pioneering a fresh type, Rubin will uncover its relatives. Yet, December goes beyond just paths in space and upcoming scans. It's tied to lingering puzzles that have mounted since July. What exactly captured the Mars probes? Come December, the government closure will be ancient history. NASA will operate with complete teams again. The sharp photos from October 3rd will have undergone review, scrutiny, and either archiving or readiness for release. Snaps from when 3I Atlas was merely 29 million kilometers away could reveal details on its core, assuming the surrounding haze wasn't overwhelming. An object 5 kilometers across at such proximity ought to display basic form, nothing intricate, just overall shape. Is it spherical, stretched, or uneven? Do light differences hint at varied surface compositions? Does it resemble the comet cores we've imaged before, or is it entirely different? That these shots remain under wraps sparks persistent doubts that won't fade simply because the month changes to December. Research findings get shared swiftly in science. The race to announce breakthroughs first is cutthroat. With various space organizations tracking 3I Atlas from Mars and none sharing in-depth visuals, it points to either improbable widespread secrecy or content too delicate for immediate disclosure. December will demand accountability for this quiet. The pictures might surface to verify it's merely an odd comet, or their continued withholding could speak volumes on its own. Radio experts are keeping a close eye too. The link to the WOW signal is pure chance or it's real. If 3I Atlas originated that 1977 detection and can still send out signals, December offers a fresh chance to pick up traces. Several radio dishes have been subtly tracking the area where 3I Atlas is expected, not amid SETI's typical hype, but through consistent, methodical vigilance. Any emission, burst, or recurring pattern in the radio spectrum tied to the object's spot would upend everything. Keep an eye on the 1420 MHz hydrogen line. That's where the wow signal showed up. That's the band any advanced society aiming to communicate would use, since hydrogen dominates the cosmos and its emission line serves as a cosmic benchmark. If 3I Atlas wants to communicate, it'll do so there. December 19th marks during its nearest pass by Earth, 3I Atlas will come within 8 astronomical units, equivalent to about 270 million kilometers. To put that in context, it's roughly 1.5 times farther than the Sun is from our planet. That's far from a threat to safety by any relevant standard, yet near enough for parallax effects to play a key role. Parallax refers to the subtle displacement in an object's apparent location when observed from varying viewpoints. As our planet circles the Sun, the perspective on 3I Atlas shifts just a bit. Through highly accurate measurements of that displacement, scientists can pinpoint the object's precise range and speed via triangulation. Even the slightest anomaly in those figures would stand out right away. Facilities worldwide will synchronize their monitoring efforts, spanning both hemispheres and various time zones, for non-stop vigilance. Hobbyists in astronomy will supply observations to complement those from experts. This event promises to rank among the most meticulously recorded encounters with any body in our solar system ever. Buried within that wealth of information will uncover either validation or refutation. Validation that 3I Atlas is, after all, a genuine interstellar visitor displaying unusual yet comprehensible traits, an envoy from a distant star system. Peculiar due to its origins in alien conditions, unlike those shaping our own comets, yet still bound by universal physical laws. Or refutation, an irregularity in its path, composition, or actions that defies explanation as a natural phenomenon, a rogue element shattering established paradigms, a clue compelling us to confront the unthinkable. Come late December, 3I's Atlas will dim once more as it pulls away from the Sun, drifting into the constellation Leo and onward to Jupiter's orbital path, which it will skirt in March 2026. Beyond that lies the outer reaches of our solar system, then the heliopause and the vast interstellar void. Regardless of the outcome, December will deliver revelations. Not every secret, but sufficient insight to discern if we're witnessing our era's most spectacular cometary display or profound shakeup in our grasp of reality. Ever since we learned Earth isn't the cosmic hub, the scopes stand poised, the formulas await. Humanity observes intently. All that's left is for 3I Atlas to swing clear of the Sun's glare and reveal its true nature. Chapter 8. The Scientific Enigmas. Allow me to delve further into the data that's robbing stargazers of sleep. Forget the guesses or hypotheses, focus on the raw readings that refuse to add up, no matter how often you crunch them. Begin with the WOW signal, captured on August 15, 1977. The Big Ear radio dish at Ohio State University was running a standard SETI scan when it picked up an anomaly that defied logic. A narrowband emission at 1420, 4 MHz, right in the band ideal for engineered broadcasts. It persisted for 72 seconds, precisely the span needed for the instrument's scan to cross a fixed point amid Earth's spin. The burst was potent, 30 times above ambient static. In the data log, the strength readings surged from typical 1s and 2s through 5s and 6s, topping out at U, the max the setup could denote before exhausting its letter options. Spotting that escalation, astronomer Jerry Emmon jotted a single term beside it. Wow, follow-up hunts ensued. Over years and even decades, the Big Ear aimed repeatedly at that sky sector, hundreds of sessions strong. Additional sites piled onto the effort, zilch. The emission stayed a one-off. Eventually, it evolved into the field's enduring riddle. A hint of zilch, a testament to naught, yet etched indelibly in memory. Now, Project 3I Atlas's path in reverse across the cosmos, factor in its 60 kilometers pace, chart its galactic route. Back in 1977, it sat approximately 600 astronomical units off Earth, 600-fold the Earth-Sun span, some 90 billion kilometers distant. From such remoteness, generating a signal that robust What Big Ear picked up would demand a transmitter pumping out anywhere from half a gigawatt to 2 gigawatts of energy. That's no mere battery. That's no ordinary generator. That's a nuclear power plant. A steady stream of output, concentrated into a tight beam capable of spanning 90 billion kilometers and still detecting at 30 times the ambient noise level. Could a comet pull that off? Not according to any physics we know. Comets don't produce gigawatts of energy. They don't send out coherent radio waves. They don't transmit precisely on the frequency that's the standard beacon for advanced societies scanning for one another. Yet an artifact built to be detected, something that had to signal its approach before slipping into the inner solar system, that's exactly how it would operate. A single, powerful burst, clear and undeniable, followed by quiet to avoid revealing its location prematurely. Now, consider the chemical readings from the Very Large Telescope data, revealing nickel absent any iron. In the natural world, these elements form a tight bond right from their origin. When a massive star goes supernova, it synthesizes heavy atoms in the blazing core. Nickel-56 transforms into iron-56. They're born through identical nuclear reactions, locked into the same minerals hurled into the cosmos as an unbreakable duo. Analysis of every meteorite, asteroid, or comet has always found them paired up. The proportions might shift a bit based on the setting, but they're invariably there together. Interstellar visitor 2I Borisov, just like 1I Oumuamua, displayed typical nickel-to-iron balances. Comets from our own solar system follow the same pattern. No natural mechanism at the temperatures 1I Oumuamua endures could possibly split these elements apart. Refining processes can, though, smelting, chemical treatments, manufacturing nickel alloys, all involve stripping out iron impurities. We perform this routinely here on Earth. Ultra-pure nickel for circuits, custom alloys, uses where iron would cause problems. The method leaves a telltale mark: nickel devoid of iron. The researchers behind this Very Large Telescope dataset explored every conceivable natural cause. Perhaps odd reactions within the icy structure, or rare minerals shaped by unseen pressures, maybe particle interactions in dust we haven't fully grasped. Each idea hit the same obstacle: temperatures too chilly, conditions mismatched. This defies expectation, and it's not fixed in place. The nickel emission surges as it nears the sun, following an exponential curve with a power law around 9. So each 10 drop in distance triggers a sharp multiplication in output. This isn't haphazard venting. It's a procedure accelerating with greater solar input, much like a system activating. Then there's the tail-oriented backward, the anti-tail that violates one of the most straightforward, dependable principles in planetary studies. Solar radiation pressure isn't gentle. Sunlight photons strike dust grains, imparting momentum. It's a small force, but persistent. Eventually, it overpowers a comet's feeble pull and pushes particles outward, away from the sun. Photos of every comet confirm it. The tail invariably streams anti-sunward. Everyone, that is, except 1I Oumuamua, where scattered light stretches twice the distance sunward compared to away. The Hubble snapshot leaves no doubt. Processed images sharpen the view. More material heads sunward than trails behind. Avi Loeb and Eric Kipping proposed a scenario where the body ejects hefty ice chunks from its sunlit face, and those bigger pieces linger due to their mass, forming a prolonged glow toward the solar direction. The math checks out theoretically. Ice bits of certain dimensions launched at precise speeds amid targeted solar warmth. But the parameters are razor thin. You require selective ejection from the sunlit side. The debris must be sizable enough to withstand solar radiation forces, yet compact enough to disperse visible wavelengths effectively. The sublimation pace has to be precisely tuned so the particles endure sufficiently to match the detected spread. It's feasible, but only just. In a similar vein, it's feasible to toss a coin 50 times and land heads each round. Physics doesn't prohibit it, yet the odds prompt suspicions of a biased die. And that's the recurring theme. Each irregularity boasts a conventional rationale that holds up only if you concede that 3I Atlas stands out with configurations unmatched by any prior comet. Its bulk could be rationalized by exceptional density. The path might be justified as a rare probabilistic outlier. The composition could be accounted for via unusual reactions. The light scattering could be clarified by an unprecedented array of dust particles. Every rationale stands on its own merits, but they're interconnected. They accumulate. 7 oddities, each demanding unique justifications, all converging in one entity. When does the most straightforward account shift from organic to engineered? That's the dilemma researchers grapple with as 3I Atlas conceals itself behind the sun. On October 1, 2025, an entity zipped within 250 miles of our planet. At such proximity, crews reside and operate on the International Space Station. Business satellites navigate in meticulously monitored orbits, yet this body, asteroid 2025 TF, evaded all detection. We spotted it merely 6 hours after it had hurtled by at more than 13,000 miles per hour, skimming right over the South Pole. Pause to consider that. A cosmic boulder, roughly the scale of a compact vehicle, outpacing any projectile, traversed the precise zone where we pursue our pinnacle endeavors in space, and we remained utterly oblivious to its arrival. At the same time, Mars rovers unearthed what experts term the most unambiguous evidence of primordial life yet found, modeled patterns preserved eternally that could confirm we weren't solitary in the cosmos. Recent congressional sessions unveiled video of a defense projectile impacting an unknown entity near Yemen's shoreline. And the target didn't disintegrate. It persisted in flight. Our star is slipping into a stage physicists describe as its final exhale, potentially igniting northern lights fiercer than any in generations. 3 comets are hurtling our way at present, shifting hue to emerald as they near, with one possibly appearing unaided to the eye soon. NASA has trimmed its workforce by 15,000 amid a sprint with China back to the lunar surface. Meanwhile, a commercial outfit prepares to fire the mightiest booster ever constructed, potentially its last trial run prior to a total overhaul. This isn't speculative fiction. This marks October 2025. If you're eager to plunge into the genuine events unfolding overhead this instant, smash that like icon and sign up, since we're set to dedicate the upcoming 2 hours dissecting the most astounding celestial developments of our era. Drop in the comments your location, the local hour, and which tale stuns you the deepest. To bolster our group, spread this across X, Facebook, Reddit, or whichever chat app you prefer. We appreciate your steadfast support. Now, let's kick off with the rock that evaded our safeguards. Chapter 1. Narrow Miss, the asteroid that ambushed humankind. We've poured billions into crafting a global safeguard network. Observatories dotted worldwide probe the dark heavens nonstop, logging every shifting form, plotting courses, guaranteeing no peril nears undetected. The setup performs admirably against major threats, those capable of devastating urban centers or entire societies. We monitor such behemoths well in advance, months or years ahead, but on October 1, 2025, the whole planetary defense setup completely missed this thing until it had zipped right past us. Asteroid 2025 TF clocks in at a diameter of about 7 meters, hardly a world ender, yet comparable to a small sedan. It zipped along at 9 kilometers equivalent to almost 13,000 mph. Quick enough to zip across the entire U.S. in under 4 minutes. During its nearest pass, shortly after midnight UTC on October 1st, the chunk of space rock skimmed just 419 kilometers over Antarctica. For context, that's basically the altitude where the International Space Station circles Earth at roughly 420 kilometers. And essentially, this asteroid cruised right through the zone where our astronauts rest. The team at the Catalina Sky Survey in Arizona picked it up at a.m. Eastern Time on October 1st, thanks to the Biak telescope up at Kitt Peak National Observatory. But the real shocker that ought to haunt your dreams? They spotted it a full 6 hours and 36 minutes after its closest shave. We caught no glimpse of its approach. We only noticed as it departed. Today, asteroid 2025 TF holds the spot as the second nearest asteroid encounter on record. The top one, asteroid 2020 VT4, came even tighter in November 2020, brushing within 370 kilometers of our planet's surface. Yet that discovery happened post-pass as well. A troubling trend emerges, and it's far from reassuring. This isn't about any lack of skill. The experts, astronomers, and technicians manning these monitoring arrays are top-tier globally. The challenge boils down to the laws of physics and limited funding. Tiny rocks like 2025 TF prove maddeningly elusive to detect. Dim, speedy, and barely bouncing back sunlight, they slip through cracks. Our observing arrays prioritize the giants over 150 meters, the kind that could wreck entire regions. We monitor those obsessively. But for stuff between 1 and 10 meters, millions exist out there, staying hidden until they're almost upon us. Now, things turn even more intriguing. Once asteroid 2025 TF finally appeared on scopes, experts backtracked to map its path. They figured out it traces a stretched ellipse around the Sun, boasting a semi-major axis of 162 astronomical units. The loop pulls it inward to 666 AU from the Sun at perihelion and outward to 256 AU at aphelion. It completes a lap every about 206 years, inclined roughly 9.1 degrees to the ecliptic, the plane where most worlds circle. Still, every figure carries massive error bars. Astronomers label the path poorly constrained, with a condition code of 7. In other words, it's derived from a mere one-day tracking window, a fleeting glimpse that turns future position forecasts into educated hunches rather than solid data. More sightings are essential to sharpen its course and gauge any risks in upcoming Earth approaches. Ponder the implications here. Something sailed nearer to our world than certain satellites, yet our grasp on its origins or next destination remains fuzzy at best. It might swing back. It could line up for an Earth smackdown years down the line, or perhaps veer away forever. Bottom line, uncertainty reigns. The harsh reality. Impacts from rocks this scale occur far more frequently than folks imagine. Take the Tunguska incident of 1908, which leveled 830 square miles of Siberian woodland, probably from a body just 30 to 50 meters wide. Bigger than 2025 TF, sure, but not drastically so. Had 2025 TF aimed straight for us rather than a mere graze, it would have burst in the air with energy rivaling several kilotons of TNT. No apocalypse, but plenty to raise a metropolis if it popped overhead, and we'd have zero warning until the end. Experts hail this as a stark alert. The close call has sparked fresh talks on bolstering our defenses. Our ability to detect smaller objects near Earth needs a serious upgrade. One key takeaway from this close call is just how crowded and hazardous our solar system really is, way beyond what our existing tech can track effectively. It's not a matter of if another space rock will catch us off guard. It's about the timing and hoping we dodge it once more. Meanwhile, as we fret over these earthbound threats, a much deeper development has been taking shape right on Mars's terrain, one that could resolve a puzzle humans have pondered for ages. Chapter 2. The Breakthrough on Mars, the smoking gun for ancient life. Scientists have been losing sleep over a certain Martian stone for more than a year now. It's not its dimensions or makeup that stand out, but the markings etched across its face. Designs that, back on our planet, scream evidence of biological activity without a doubt. NASA dropped a bombshell on September 10, 2025, sparking waves of excitement across the research world and far beyond. The Perseverance rover's find of possible biological markers in a specimen dubbed Sapphire Canyon has endured the toughest scientific vetting possible. That includes thorough peer evaluation and a feature spot in Nature Journal. Acting NASA head Shaw Duffy didn't mince words. This very well could be the clearest sign of life that we've ever found on Mars. Flashback to July 24, 2024, when Perseverance bored into an arrowhead-like boulder, playfully named Chayava Falls, within Jezero crater on Mars. Right away, the rover's sensors picked up something captivating. The stone's exterior featured what experts started dubbing leopard spots, tiny, round motifs with pale cores encircled by shadowy borders. Far from mere aesthetics, these were geochemical clues that, on Earth, typically arise from bacteria breaking down organic materials and excreting particular compounds as leftovers. Inside those spots lie vivianite and gray heat, minerals that develop in cool, moisture-abundant settings. Vivianite, a water-bearing iron phosphate, commonly appears alongside rotting organics in deposits. Grage, meanwhile, is an iron sulfide generated by certain microbes during their life processes. Spotting these minerals paired up right alongside organic carbon amounts to what rock experts describe as a strong candidate for a biological indicator. Yet the tale takes an even wilder turn here. Chava Falls rests within a rock layer known as Bright Angel, positioned near the borders of Nuret Vales, a long-lost river channel that funneled streams toward Jezero Crater over 3 billion years in the past. Spanning about a 4-mile in width, this channel points to steady, forceful currents persisting across extended times. The siltstones and stratified layers in Bright Angel paint a picture of a lively landscape, shifting between rushing streams and tranquil pools, precisely the sort of habitat where microbial organisms flourish right here on Earth. What made this find so startling is that Bright Angel holds some of the freshest sedimentary layers the Perseverance team has probed. Past theories figured traces of early life would stick to the planet's ancient strata echoes from Mars's prime, wet and warm phase. But these traits showing up in newer deposits imply the red planet stayed livable longer than we'd guessed, or that organisms hung on deeper into its timeline than expected. That said, let's pump the brakes a bit and clarify what a prospective biological marker truly signifies. It's no slam-dunk confirmation of living things. Rather, it's a clue demanding deeper probing. As lead researcher Katie Stack Morgan stressed, assertions in astrobiology, especially ones hinting at ancient alien organisms, demand rock-solid backing. The rigorous vetting that earned its place in Nature was intentionally. Scientists subjected the findings to intense review, with independent experts dedicating a full year to examining the Mars 2020 group's data and interpretations. They explored other potential causes, including non-living mechanisms that might produce identical formations. Although some alternatives emerged, none aligned with the observations quite as effectively as the idea of biological origins. What elevates this breakthrough to such significance is the advanced technology employed by the Perseverance rover in studying Chava Falls. The Sherlock device, short for scanning habitable environments with Raman and luminescence for organics and chemicals, identified a prominent spectral signal known as the GAND, signaling the presence of organic carbon. Meanwhile, Pixel, the planetary instrument for X-ray lithochemistry, charted the spread of elements on the stone's exterior with remarkable accuracy. Combined, these tools showed that the organic materials and redox-sensitive minerals weren't merely coexisting, they were concentrated in identical microscopic areas, grouped in patterns that imply a clear link. Here on Earth, such clustering is commonplace in microbial habitats. Microbes break down organic substances and excrete minerals as byproducts, with those minerals forming precisely at the sites of microbial colonies, yielding unique signatures. The spotted patterns on Chai Falls bear a striking resemblance to those in ancient Earth rocks, confirmed to host microbial life. Yet, a major hurdle remains. To conclusively verify a biological source for these structures, researchers must return the Sapphire Canyon specimen to Earth for examination using far more advanced equipment than what's feasible on a rover. Earth-based facilities enable isotopic studies, detailed molecular breakdowns of the organics, and tests impossible with onboard gear. This is where geopolitical tensions come into play. The Mars Sample Return Initiative, a collaboration between NASA and the European Space Agency, aims precisely to achieve this. Collect the specimens Perseverance has gathered and transport them to Earth labs. However, the project has faced escalating costs and repeated postponements. The 2026 budget proposed by President Trump would eliminate the existing program altogether, slashing its allocation to nothing. At the September press event unveiling the Chava Falls results, Duffy indicated this wasn't a full retreat from the objective, but rather a shift to pursue more affordable and expedited alternatives. In the interim, China has unveiled intentions for its independent Mars sample return effort, possibly launching by 2028. Should the U.S. fail to retrieve Perseverance's samples, China could pioneer the first return of Martian substances to our planet, positioning them to resolve once and for all if life ever thrived on Mars. The international stakes are immense. For the moment, the Sapphire Canyon sample remains securely encased in a sealed container on Mars's surface in anticipation. It holds what could prove humanity's greatest scientific revelation, preserved clues that might transform our view of life's role across the cosmos. But as that sample lingers, developments far nearer to home have been emerging, compelling authorities to grapple with inquiries they'd prefer to avoid. Chapter 3. UFO. Enigma intensifies. Congress unveils startling video. On September 9, 2025, Congressman Eric Burles of Missouri entered a House Oversight Committee session and screened footage unseen by the wider public until then. The clip from October 30, 2024, depicts a luminous orb traveling across a shadowy backdrop. Abruptly, a Hellfire missile appears in view. It impacts the object head-on. The ensuing events challenge every assumption we hold about the way these missiles operate is quite different. The target fails to detonate. It shows no signs of breaking apart. It barely appears to decelerate at all. Instead, the projectile seems to ricochet away and proceed along its path as the spherical object maintains its flight. "That's a Hellfire missile colliding with that UFO and simply rebounding," Burles remarked while analyzing the footage. And it just carried on. He hesitated briefly before posing the query that's resonated across military networks for years now. "I won't guess at its nature, but the real issue is, why do we keep getting stonewalled on this data time and again?" The footage came from an MQ-9 Reaper drone patrolling Yemen's coastal waters. Back then, those seas formed a hotbed of conflict, where U.S. Navy vessels and planes safeguarded trade routes against attacks from Houthi rebels, launching missiles and unmanned craft. U.S. troops were routinely neutralizing dangers there. Yet this entity, no matter what it turned out to be, acted nothing like a typical drone or projectile, and it utterly ignored the Hellfire impact in ways no conventional flyer ever would. Pressed for confirmation of the clip's legitimacy and specifics on its timing and location, the Department of Defense stayed silent. One official informed journalists, "We do not have anything to provide on this." A DoD representative chimed in, "I have nothing for you." Such evasion only amplified the enigma. Still, the Yemen clip wasn't the sole bombshell from the proceedings. Several ex-service members gave sworn accounts of their personal run-ins with unidentified anomalous phenomena, the official label these days for former UFOs. Air Force vet Dylan Boland recounted a 2012 episode during a night watch at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia when he went out for a quick smoke. A wedge-shaped craft lingered overhead for minutes, utterly quiet and still. Boland said it then shot up to the altitude of passenger planes and vanished from sight at incredible velocity. He filed the sighting via proper protocols. In 2023, ARO, the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, questioned him, yet rather than treating it with gravity, he alleges they brushed it aside. Even more troubling, he endured professional backlash, tampering with his clearance, and exclusion from jobs at government spy outfits. His account sketched a bureaucracy not merely negligent in probing UAP events, but one that deliberately penalizes whistleblowers. The session went beyond personal tales. It zeroed in on openness or its glaring absence. Task Force Chair Representative Anna Paulina Luna kicked things off, declaring, "For too long, the issue of unidentified anomalous phenomena commonly known as UAPs has been shrouded in secrecy, stigma, and in some cases outright dismissal. This is about national security, government accountability, and the American people's right to the truth." What sets this apart from years of UFO chatter is the caliber of those speaking out. These aren't wild-eyed plot peddlers. They're disciplined troops boasting impeccable histories, top-secret access, and boots-on-the-ground expertise. The visuals aren't shaky amateur shots from a suburban lawn. They're crisp readings from cutting-edge defense gear, grabbed amid real-time missions in hostile skies. And the pushback against revealing details doesn't stem from clandestine groups. It originates right from DoD branches tasked with examining such occurrences. ARO insists it lacks solid proof of alien presence or tech. The outfit employs a strict empirical method and evidence-based strategy to demystify UAP. However, detractors argue that standout examples, like the Yemen event, often get rationalized with reasoning that falls short. Consider the notorious Go Fast footage from 2015 captured a swiftly traveling item seeming to zip across the sea surface near California at remarkable velocity. Experts at AARO ultimately concluded it stemmed from a visual trick caused by a weather balloon, attributing the illusion of rapid movement to parallax effects and the perspective of the Navy F-18's onboard camera. But aviators who observed these phenomena firsthand, beyond mere instrument readings, maintain that such accounts fail to align with what they saw. Certain investigators propose the Yemen sphere could likewise be a balloon carried by upper-level winds and catching the sun's rays. The idea holds that its quick apparent motion resulted from parallax as the drone's lens followed it. As for the missile, it might have just veered off course, with the recording's viewpoint creating the false impression of a solid impact. Yet, Lou Elizondo, a retired high-ranking intelligence figure who spoke at the session, firmly rejected that notion. "We've never observed a Hellfire missile striking a target and ricocheting away," he added. "A Hellfire's kinetic impact on a sturdy object typically leaves little behind of the struck item. It's incredibly devastating." So where does that leave us? The U.S. Armed Forces may have crossed paths with an entity boasting tech well ahead of known human levels, one able to endure a straight-on missile attack and keep functioning, or there's an ordinary rationale that authorities won't disclose openly for motives we can merely speculate about. Neither scenario offers much reassurance, and this isn't a one-off occurrence. The National UFO Reporting Center recorded more than 2,000 UAP observations in the initial half of 2025 alone, marking a sharp rise compared to prior periods. The Defense Department has fielded over 750 fresh accounts from May 2023 through June 2024. Whatever's taking place overhead is ramping up in frequency, drawing wider notice. As authorities wrestle with unidentified aerial intruders they can't decipher, a more foreseeable yet equally striking development has been playing out in the heavens, powered by the celestial body that sustains all earthly life. Chapter 4. Solar Fury, the Sun's Final Outburst. In October 2024, researchers issued a declaration that deserved front-page coverage but slipped under the radar amid routine headlines. Our star has hit solar maximum, the height of its 11-year cycle of activity. To many, this registers as arcane astrophysics relevant to scholars, but irrelevant to daily routines. Yet the current upheavals on our sun are far from theoretical, and the strongest repercussions could lie ahead. One key aspect of solar maximum that often goes unmentioned is this. The activity crest doesn't signal the close of intense happenings. Instead, it ushers in a period potentially yielding even more geomagnetic disturbances and dazzling northern lights than the peak moment. Picture it as a pyrotechnic display that shines most vividly not at launch, but in its climactic burst right before dimming. The sun is gearing up for its parting breath, and that breath might illuminate night skies worldwide for the coming 2 years. Solar expert Paul Breck of the Norwegian Space Agency stated it simply. It's positive for those hunting auroras, since peak displays tend to emerge a couple of years post-maximum. Therefore, we can anticipate several more years of elevated auroral displays. Take a second to absorb that. The spectacle isn't wrapping up. We're heading into the big finish. To grasp the reason, consider the roots of auroras. At solar maximum, the sun's face fills with sunspots, zones of fierce magnetic turmoil where stellar field lines twist and strain. When those lines break and reform, they unleash vast energy bursts as solar flares and coronal mass ejections. Even 1 CME can the sun blasts enormous quantities of plasma billions of tons out into space at velocities surpassing 1,000,000 miles per hour. When this plasma collides with our planet's magnetic shield, it sparks geomagnetic disturbances that direct charged particles to the poles. There, they smash into atmospheric atoms, producing the dazzling veils of light known as auroras. But the narrative takes a fascinating turn after the solar maximum. While the frequency of explosive solar flares and coronal mass ejections, CMEs, begins to drop off, that doesn't lead to fewer auroras. In fact, it's quite the opposite. In the waning stage of the solar cycle, a different phenomenon emerges. Enduring coronal holes start to develop. These are shadowy patches in the sun's outer layers where magnetic field lines stretch out into space, permitting relentless outflows of swift solar wind. Such rapid streams can endure for weeks or months, relentlessly pounding Earth's magnetic barrier with steady force, igniting geomagnetic upheavals as striking as those from CMEs. Solar physicist Shah Scoff described it like this: "In the declining period, we end up with even more geomagnetic storms." Sure, the sun's outburst intensity might ease a little post-solar max peak, yet with ongoing coronal hole development and a solid number of remaining eruptions, the combined effect yields more regular and occasionally fiercer shows of auroral splendor. This pattern is unfolding right now. Back in early October 2025, our planet endured 5 straight days of geomagnetic unrest, fueled by a high-velocity solar wind surge from a coronal hole. Those wind speeds hit 768 kilometers initially, then tapered to 608 kilometers. Even at the lower velocities, it packed enough punch to spark scattered G1 level or mild geomagnetic storms. Northern lights shimmered over high-latitude regions, appearing as far south as New York on certain evenings. Photographers across Iceland, Norway, Canada, and the northern U.S. snapped breathtaking shots of emerald, rose, and violet glows undulating overhead. And that was merely a prelude, a modest coronal mass ejection from an M1. 5 solar flare in early October is slated to reach us around October 8th, possibly stirring up fresh turbulence. Experts predict that solar cycle 25 will sustain elevated geomagnetic action through 2027 or longer, propelled by this mix of holdover eruptions and steadfast coronal holes. Yet another element factors in, unrelated to the sun: Earth's positioning amid equinox periods, which we're navigating in early October. At equinox times, the tilt of our magnetic field against the oncoming solar wind fosters setups where greater numbers of particles breach our safeguards, fueling more potent auroral spectacles. It's akin to swinging wide a gate that's normally ajar. The real-world effects of this solar dynamism extend past mere visual wonders. Geomagnetic tempests can scramble radio signals, disrupt GPS navigation, hasten satellite orbital breakdown, and in severe instances, endanger electrical networks. Take the massive geomagnetic event of March 1989, triggered by a potent CME. It blacked out Quebec province for 9 hours. Transformers scorched, breakers flipped, and millions sat powerless. That episode hit G5 or extreme status on the geomagnetic scale. Today's disturbances have largely ranged from G1 to G3, mild to moderate in scale, but they're potent enough to vex satellite handlers and pilots on polar flights. Researchers rely on the KP index to gauge geomagnetic intensity, rated from 0 to 9. A reading of 5 or above signals stormy weather. In the opening week of October 2025, the KP hovered between 3 and 5, with occasional jumps into storm territory. Forecasters expect this trend to persist, featuring frequent periods of instability and activity, interrupted now and then by more intense solar storms in the months ahead. For everyday folks not involved in satellite operations or power grid oversight, the primary impact of this solar outburst is pure visual delight. The northern lights rank among Earth's most breathtaking natural displays, and the upcoming 2 years could deliver some of the finest viewing prospects in generations. Residents in polar regions, north of 50 latitude or south of its counterpart, will enjoy frequent sightings, while those farther south, around 40 and beyond, could still glimpse the spectacle amid powerful eruptions. The sun's final outburst is shaping up as an unforgettable celestial performance. Yet, as the sun ignites our atmosphere with vivid hues, additional cosmic travelers are drawing near from the vastness of space, each delivering its unique form of wonder. Chapter 5. Comet Chaos 3. Emerald intruders illuminate the October heavens. An unusual event unfolds in October 2025. On the perfect evening, from an ideal vantage point, gaze skyward and you could witness not just one or two, but 3 comets gracing the view at once. Each glows with a greenish tint. Each was identified only this year. And one may shine vividly enough for unaided eyes. A scarce treat in a time when many such wanderers stay disappointingly faint. The highlight of this stellar extravaganza is Comet C2025A6, widely called Comet Lemon, honoring the Mount Lemmon Observatory in Arizona, its discovery site on January 3, 2025. Back then, it registered at magnitude 21.5, so dim that experts first mistook it for a rocky asteroid. Only subsequent scans revealing a compact coma and brief tail confirmed its cometary identity. Throughout much of the year, Lemon stayed a niche target for pros, overlooked by most amateurs. Initial forecasts indicated a maximum of magnitude 9 around perihelion in early November, suitable for amateur scopes but far from bare-eye detection. Then came a surprise. In mid-August, post-solar conjunction when glare obscured it, watchers saw it outshining expectations. By August 19th, it hit magnitude 11. A stubby pointed tail emerged and the surge kept building. Into late September, Comet Lemon achieved magnitude 8 to 9, clear through binoculars or modest telescopes. Imagers started snapping remarkable shots, displaying not only the luminous core and hazy envelope, but also an extended ion tail billowing sunward, twisted and knotted by solar wind forces. On September 30th, it had intensified to magnitude 6. 6, sporting an ion tail spanning roughly 3 and a dust tail starting to show. Fresh data, pouring in daily, now points to a peak of magnitude 4 or perhaps 3 during its nearest Earth pass on October 21st at 56 million miles away. That teeters on the brink of visibility without aids. In remote, light pollution-free spots, it might appear as a hazy pinpoint. Unlike comets that flare too near the sun for safe observation, Lemon positions favorably in the post-sunset west, about 42 from the solar disk, an hour after dusk. It should grow even brighter post-encounter en route to perihelion on November 8th. Prime observation windows fall around Halloween and the start of November as Lemon traverses the constellation Fomalhaut. For viewers in the northern hemisphere, this represents a singular chance. Comet Lemon traces a highly eccentric path and might not reappear for 1350 years, if ever. But Lemon isn't the only one out there. Just weeks back, Comet C225R2 Swan was found, right on the eve of its nearest swing by the sun. Ground telescopes missed it earlier due to the overwhelming solar brightness blocking the view. Instead, keen-eyed hobbyists Vladimir Bazougi and Michael Madiazzo picked it up in shots from the Swan camera on NASA's Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, an orbital scope built to monitor the sun, which explains the Swan moniker. This comet won't brighten further now that it's heading outward from the sun, yet it'll become simpler to observe as it gains separation from that solar glare in our line of sight. Come October 20th, it'll come within 24 million miles of Earth. Stunning images already show its tail extending beyond the star Spica. This weekend, it'll glide just a degree from Mars, offering astrophotographers a prime chance to snap both in one frame. Rounding out this stellar lineup is Comet C225K18, Atlas, dubbed for the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. A program aimed at detecting Earth-approaching asteroids, though it's sharp enough to catch comets as well. K18 is dimmer than its companions, but it's gaining luminosity on its sunward path. In the weeks ahead, dedicated skywatchers with binoculars or modest scopes can catch it best pre-dawn. What makes these 3 comets glow green? It's due to diatomic carbon pairs of carbon atoms linked up that soaks in sunlight and re-emits it at wavelengths our eyes perceive as green. As comets near the sun, the heat and radiation shatter bigger organic compounds in their frozen nuclei, freeing diatomic carbon into the surrounding haze. The nearer they draw, the more carbon emerges, intensifying that verdant shine. Fun fact, a fourth green comet is out there now, though spotting it takes real effort. The interstellar wanderer 3I Atlas, merely the third such intruder from outside our solar system to be spotted, has lately ditched its reddish tint for a vibrant green while reacting to solar energies in manners scientists are still puzzling over. We'll circle back to that tale soon enough. Comet Lemon has already surpassed predictions, sparking real buzz among stargazers about its peak brilliance. Nick James, who leads the Comet Group at the British Astronomical Association, shared with Spaceweather.com. This one's shaping up beautifully, already a striking sight, perfectly positioned in the dawn heavens. It's absolutely worth the early rise. That element of surprise is what hooks us on comets. Unlike reliable planets or stars with their fixed orbits and constant glow, comets are untamed and fickle, liable to underwhelm or dazzle without notice. They might surge in brightness out of nowhere, split apart unexpectedly, or fade into nothing right when hype builds. Forecasting a comet's antics is akin to weather prognostication half a year out. You lean on science and history for smart estimates, but the universe loves a twist. And twists abound this October 2025. 3 emerald comets streaking across our skies simultaneously. One possibly bare-eye viewable, the sun erupting with vigor, northern lights shimmering farther south, asteroids slipping through our guards. Plus, on Mars, a stone etched with markings that could hint at long-lost microbial traces. Yet amid this natural celestial spectacle, one firm gears up to unleash the mightiest rocket in history, a beast that might transform exploration or join the annals of bold flops. Chapter 6, Starship's Decisive Push, SpaceX's Pivotal Instant, October 13, 2025. Mark that. Should everything unfold as intended, and with SpaceX, that's far from certain, the global audience will observe the 11th test of Starship, the loftiest and most potent rocket ever constructed. Yet this isn't merely another liftoff. The 11th mission represents the final appearance for Starship version 2 in action. All future efforts will scale up in size, strength, and expected dependability. The big uncertainty, can version 2 wrap up on a triumphant peak, or will it contribute yet another detonation to a year already overflowing with them? Let's address the obvious issue head-on. 2025 hasn't treated Starship kindly. The year kicked off with consecutive devastating malfunctions that rattled faith in the whole initiative. In January's Flight 7, the upper stage, referred to as Ship, underwent a disastrous disintegration right at the outset of its ascent burn. 4 out of 6 engines cut out too soon, leading to a failure in orientation and complete blackout of data signals. The craft's destruction was visible from spots as distant as Florida, Jamaica, and the Turks and Caicos Islands. March's Flight 8 seemed promising initially. The Super Heavy booster got snagged by the mechanical arms of the launch tower, an impressive feat. But Ship 34 endured 4 engine outages amid its propulsion phase, forfeited stability, and shattered about 9.5 minutes post-launch. May brought Flight 9, featuring the initiative's inaugural recycled Super Heavy booster, a notable advancement. Still, the upper stage couldn't fulfill its objectives once more. That's 3 consecutive setbacks, 3 upper stages sacrificed, 3 probes launched, 3 cycles of modifications and assurances that the following attempt would turn things around. August's Flight 10 shattered the pattern of defeats at last. All systems performed flawlessly. The booster touched down in the water right on schedule. The upper stage traced its suborbital path, plunged back into the atmosphere with its thermal protection unscathed, and executed a guided splashdown in the Indian Ocean. It even released Starlink satellites mid-mission, showcasing a vital operational feature. For the first time in ages, SpaceX and its backers could finally breathe easy. Now, Flight 11 arrives, set for p.m. Central Time on October 13th, blasting off from Starbase in South Texas. The flight plan echoes Flight 10's blueprint, yet includes notable tweaks that amp up the challenge and inherent dangers. The booster in play, labeled B-15, already soared during March's Flight 8. It got captured by the tower back then, establishing it as battle-tested gear. On this go-round, it's fitted with 24 reused Raptor engines, so both the booster and the bulk of its propulsion units have endured the rigors of ascent and descent before. But catch this. Rather than chasing another tower capture, B-15 will execute a novel landing propulsion setup that SpaceX intends for the upcoming Super Heavy version 3. The booster will fire up 13 engines to kick off the descent burn, then shift to an innovative pattern featuring 5 engines active through the so-called divert segment. Earlier versions relied on just 3 for that part. This upgraded 5-engine method builds in extra safeguards against abrupt engine dropouts, an issue that's haunted multiple outings. Ultimately, the booster will switch to its 3 central engines to wrap the landing burn, hovering steadily over the Gulf of Mexico prior to powering off and hitting the waves. SpaceX dubs this a rigorous trial. They're aiming to gauge authentic structural behaviors as the engines cycle through startups and shutdowns across the burn stages. Success here would confirm the strategy for version 3. Failure? At least it happens over open water, not close to the pad. The upper stage, Ship 38, carries its share of bold objectives too. It aims to release 8 Starlink prototypes, stand-ins roughly matching the dimensions and weight of the forthcoming commercial generation. These prototypes won't. These faux satellites follow the identical suborbital path as Starship and are destined to disintegrate upon atmospheric re-entry, yet their release serves to validate the deployment systems and protocols essential for actual operations. Additionally, Ship 38 plans to reignite a single Raptor engine amid the vacuum of space, showcasing the potential for advanced maneuvers that go far beyond mere gliding. Such functionality proves vital for upcoming voyages to the Moon, Mars, or any destination demanding exact adjustments in orbit. Next up is the thermal protection evaluation, which intentionally introduces high-risk elements. The team has deliberately stripped away heat shield tiles from multiple sections of Ship 38 to rigorously probe susceptible regions throughout the craft. Certain omitted tiles expose areas lacking an underlying ablative coating. Should re-entry plasma infiltrate those openings, it might sear right through the framework, triggering a total structural collapse. However, SpaceX must pinpoint the exact vulnerabilities and gauge the vessel's tolerance for damage prior to breakdown. The sole method to uncover this is by subjecting it to extreme conditions until failure occurs. Provided Ship 38 endures the re-entry ordeal, it will execute a sweeping tilt during the concluding drop phase, evaluating low-speed navigation routines crucial for subsequent returns to the originating pad. This leads into a deceleration burn, followed by a soft splashdown in the Indian Ocean, ideally intact. All these efforts pave the way for version 3. The Starship variant that SpaceX anticipates will render the entire setup fully functional. Version 3 prototypes will boast expanded dimensions, increased fuel reserves, and amplified cargo space. The accompanying boosters will incorporate additional engines, yielding superior propulsion power. Above all, the blueprint integrates insights from a decade of trial launches, plus innumerable mishaps, detonations, and narrow escapes. Yet these advancements hold little value should Flight 11 veer off course. A disintegration of Ship 38 amid the shield strain trial would arm detractors with proof of inherent design defects in Starship. A flop in the booster's updated descent ignition setup might cast doubt on the strategy's overall feasibility. Moreover, any dramatic mishap unfolding before the public eye could strain SpaceX's ties with NASA, which relies on Starship to deliver crew to the lunar surface via the Artemis 3 endeavor in 2027. The pressure is immense. Starship transcends mere rocketry. It forms the core of SpaceX's blueprint for humanity's spacefaring tomorrow. It's engineered to render orbital travel affordable and commonplace. It's meant to facilitate settlements on Mars. It's poised to transform satellite launches, enable in-orbit refueling, and ultimately transport people on interplanetary treks straight out of speculative novels. But before any of that, it needs to cease self-destructing. Flight 11 represents SpaceX's opportunity to cap version 2 with a triumph, gaining traction for the version 3 phase. The liftoff slot begins on October 13th. Countless observers will tune in, and in the hushed moments preceding liftoff, a universal hope will echo. Just hold together. As SpaceX hurries to refine its colossal launcher, a rival country is advancing a probe already traversing billions of miles en route to a celestial body that could reveal clues about our moon's turbulent origins. Chapter 7. China's Lunar Enigma. Tianwen-2's bold expedition. On May 28, 2025, at AM local time in China, a Long March 3B launcher ascended through the darkness from Xichang Satellite Launch Center in Sichuan Province. The global audience largely overlooked it, but the payload aboard that vehicle could unravel one of the oddest puzzles in our solar system's vicinity. Is a fragment of the moon drifting in Earth's vicinity, masquerading as an asteroid? The probe, named Tianwen-2, marks the follow-up in China's Deep Space Initiative. Tianwen-1 had targeted Mars, supplying an orbiting observer and a surface explorer that continue operating. China's space program is pushing boundaries with several ambitious projects up and running. Tianwen-3 aims to retrieve samples from Mars, possibly outpacing NASA's challenging sample return initiative. Meanwhile, Tianwen-4 is set to explore both Jupiter and Uranus during one voyage. Yet, Tianwen-2 focuses on a destination that's nearby, yet profoundly enigmatic, an entity named Kamo-Olea, or Asteroid 2016 HO3. Astronomers classify Kamo-Olea as a quasi-satellite, a near-Earth body that seems to circle our world while truly revolving around the Sun. The path it follows aligns so precisely with Earth's that from our viewpoint it appears to waltz nearby, always staying close without drifting off or being tugged elsewhere. This space rock spans 40 to 100 meters in diameter, comparable to the scale of a Ferris wheel. It circles the Sun once every 365 days, nearly identical to our planet's annual cycle. This odd orbital routine has persisted for a minimum of 100 years, and perhaps far beyond. What sets Kamo-Olea apart as truly odd is its spectral signature, the manner in which it bounces back sunlight mirroring the appearance of aged rocks from the moon. Back in 2021, researcher Ben Shai headed an investigation, proposing that the asteroid could be a huge chunk hurled from the lunar surface by a long-ago collision. Kamoa draws its name from a traditional Hawaiian chant about creation, evoking an idea of a child venturing independently, a fitting metaphor for a piece of the moon drifting solo through the cosmos yet lingering by its origin. Should this hypothesis hold true, Kamoa might reveal insights into the moon's past pummeling by meteorites, the scale and force of strikes that molded its terrain, and even yield untouched lunar substances free from any earthly pollution. Still, an alternative explanation exists. Kamo-Olea could be an asteroid from the main belt that shifted into a half-captured path around Earth via gravitational forces beyond our complete grasp. Such a scenario would prove just as captivating, uncovering travel routes across the solar system that existing theories overlook. To settle the matter definitively, a visit is essential to gather specimens. That's the core purpose of Tianwen-2. Shortly after liftoff on June 6th, barely more than 7 days in the China National Space Administration shared the operation's initial progress report. The probe functioned smoothly and had covered over 3 million kilometers away from our planet. An image captured by a technical camera depicted one of Tianwen-2's solar panels drifting amid the void's darkness. Though the shot seemed basic and unremarkable, it verified that the vessel remained functional and robust. Tianwen-2 is presently embarked on a 12-month trek toward Kamo-Olea. Upon reaching it in 2026, the craft will dedicate yet another year to encircling the minuscule body, examining it up close, charting its form and terrain, and assessing its weight and makeup. The endeavor poses immense challenges. Kamo-Olea ranks as the tiniest asteroid any mission has ever aimed for. Plus, it spins fully around every 28 minutes, earning it the title of the quickest spinner probed by any probe. Touching down on an object so diminutive and whirling so rapidly resembles attempting to seize a spinning carousel sight unseen. To tackle this, China intends to employ 3 distinct methods for gathering samples. Initially, a suspended method will have the descender sink its spin with the rocks as it scoops up particles. Next comes a brief contact tactic, akin to the effective strategies of NASA's OSIRIS-REx and Japan's Higher Booster 2 efforts. The vehicle makes fleeting surface contact, secures a portion, and promptly departs. The boldest option deploys drills fitted to the descender's limbs to secure the craft firmly to the rock's exterior, enabling steadier and extended collection periods. The objective is securing no less than 100 grams of substance slightly over 3 ounces. It may seem modest, but scooping from an asteroid 40 million miles distant using a self-operating robotic explorer, given the communication delays, make every gram count. Once the samples are safely obtained, Tianwen-2 will embark on its return voyage. In 2028, roughly 2.5 years following liftoff, the probe will near our planet and deploy a re-entry module carrying the asteroid material. This module must endure re-entry velocities of 12 meters quicker than any craft coming back from the moon, producing intense heat and stress that will test China's thermal protection systems to the extreme. Yet that's not the end of the adventure. The mission grows even bolder from there. Following the release of the sample container, Tianwen-2 won't simply end its service. Rather, it will leverage Earth's gravity for a slingshot maneuver, propelling itself into a trajectory aimed at an entirely new destination. The main belt comet 300 Pan-STARRS. The trip should span around 7 years. Should all go according to plan, Tianwen-2 will reach the comet in the mid-2030s, circle it, and perform distant observations on this peculiar body that blends traits of asteroids and comets. The full operation is engineered to span a decade, a single vehicle tackling 2 distinct objectives, retrieving samples from a quasi-satellite, followed by an encounter with a main belt comet. It's a daring, intricate endeavor, and success would showcase skills held by only a few countries. More crucially, it poses a bold counter to U.S. leadership in space. As NASA grapples with funding shortfalls, staff cuts, and political meddling, China is carrying out a meticulously orchestrated, generously supported initiative in robotic space ventures, progressing toward increasingly grand objectives. Tianwen-2 took off right on time. The craft is functioning smoothly, and by 2028 it could bring the initial specimens from Kamoa-Lewa to Earth-based labs. Should analysis reveal the asteroid as a piece of the moon, China would resolve a key scientific puzzle while highlighting its expertise in far-reaching space endeavors. If NASA's Mars sample retrieval effort keeps stalling as China hauls back rocks from an asteroid, and, down the line, from Mars, the broader significance would be undeniable. The competition in space persists. It's merely shifting into a fresh era, one with an ever-receding goalpost and rivals pursuing divergent paths. China is adopting a strategic, enduring approach, systematically developing expertise, dispatching probes, gathering insights, and showing that consistent long-term commitment to space efforts yields real rewards. At present, Tianwen-2 is millions of kilometers distant and drifting further with each passing day, powered by solar energy and ionic propulsion en route to an obscure objective few know about. But upon arrival, once it gathers those samples and they make their way back, global interest will surge. In that instant, another power will join the elite club alongside the United States and Japan. In claiming the feat of bringing back substances from beyond the moon. Meanwhile, as China methodically propels its space agenda with defined aims and reliable resources, the U.S. organization that first landed people on the lunar surface confronts a profound dilemma that risks unraveling generations of progress and jeopardizing already underway projects. Chapter 8. NASA in Crisis, Shutdown, Layoffs, and the Fight for Science. At a.m. on October 1, 2025, the U.S. federal government entered an official shutdown. Almost immediately, 15,000 NASA staffers got furlough orders and headed home. Laboratories fell silent, offices shuttered, active studies came to a standstill. For the bulk of the organization, operations ceased completely. But not for all personnel. A minor portion of NASA's team, slightly more than 3,000 individuals, earned essential status and had to continue their duties. They faced delayed salaries throughout the closure recording time, worked in anticipation of retroactive compensation once things resume. But they must report because their roles are vital to sustaining active spacecraft. Mission control activities for the operations at the International Space Station proceeded without interruption. Mission control teams on the ground continue to oversee vital life support mechanisms, ready and verify instructions, and handle any urgent situations. Roughly 1,000 directives are transmitted daily from our planet to the ISS, ensuring smooth functioning and the astronauts' well-being. If those specialists were sidelined, the crew's safety would hang in the balance, which is why they labor without compensation as lawmakers debate funding in Congress. Another key exemption from the closure involves the Artemis Initiative, NASA's push to bring people back to the lunar surface. Before the shutdown kicked in, Acting Administrator Shaw Duffy laid out the agency's top goals in a post on social media. China has no benevolent aims for the moon. The message was unmistakable. Outpacing China in reaching the moon's terrain is viewed as a vital matter of national defense, justifying the continued employment of thousands of staff and subcontractors despite the furlough. This covers personnel on Artemis II, the initial uncrewed orbital test around the moon, slated for early February 2026, as well as Artemis III, the crewed landing operation targeted for the middle of 2027. It also encompasses teams at SpaceX and Blue Origin crafting moonlanders and related equipment for the effort. Those subcontractors received orders to press on during the shutdown, recording their hours but foregoing prompt paychecks since delaying Artemis anymore would be unacceptable. Yet the shutdown conceals deeper issues. The turmoil at NASA predates October 1st by a wide margin. Back in early 2025, directives from the Office of Management and Budget and interim NASA leaders called for reducing the agency's staff by over 4,000 positions. Between late September and January 9, 2026, a large number of veteran NASA workers are exiting via voluntary separation packages. These aren't temporary layoffs, they represent lasting exits, more than 20 of the workforce vanishing. And it's beyond mere figures. Among those departing are elite professionals, engineers involved with Artemis technologies, researchers directing planetary explorations, specialists in areas such as energy systems, rocket engines, and environmental controls. An anonymous staffer at Houston's Johnson Space Center revealed that the organization has forfeited one of its leading authorities on power systems, a severe blow to progress on the nuclear power unit essential for lunar energy production. This wave of departures stems from fiscal instability and governmental strain. The President's fiscal year 2026 budget plan for NASA proposes the smallest allocation since 1961 when adjusted for inflation, the same year Alan Shepard achieved America's inaugural spaceflight. That plan features a brutal 47% reduction in science initiatives. Should it pass, it would terminate 41 projects, encompassing probes already in orbit and yielding breakthroughs. Pause to consider that 41 active endeavors axed, not ones in the planning stages. Orbiting instruments peering at remote star systems, rovers probing alien worlds, orbiters tracking planetary weather patterns. The plan would effectively deactivate vessels that have traversed the solar system for years, squandering billions in public funds and obliterating irreplaceable insights. The roster of endangered projects resembles a highlight reel of cosmic achievements. The Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, a premier instrument poised to detect vast numbers of exoplanets and map over 1 billion galaxies, faces termination even though it's almost finished. OSIRIS-APEX, en route to examine asteroid Apophis during its 2029 Earth approach, would get powered down in transit. The Mars sample return effort, with specimens already gathered on the red planet awaiting retrieval, would be scrapped, possibly handing China the edge in bringing back Martian substances first. Even endeavors that have demonstrated undeniable value, they're not secure. The Chandra X-ray Observatory, operational since 1999 and revolutionizing our understanding of the high-energy cosmos through groundbreaking findings, now faces potential termination. The Hubble Space Telescope, arguably the most renowned scientific tool in history, risks having its operational support slashed or completely withdrawn. These proposed reductions extend far beyond space missions alone. Efforts in Earth observation tracking climate shifts, monitoring forest loss, gauging rising oceans, and supplying vital information for weather predictions and emergency management are likewise under threat. Initiatives for planetary protection aimed at detecting and monitoring near-Earth asteroids that pose risks would suffer funding shortfalls. It's particularly ironic in light of the unexpected close approach by asteroid 2025 TF recently. Insiders at NASA have raised alarms, pointing out that enforcing an unapproved budget violates the law and contradicts core constitutional tenets. The agency's legal team ought to recognize this. One whistleblower emphasized that the current administration's actions breach internal NASA protocols, regulations, and congressional intent. Yet these infractions persist, frequently shielded from scrutiny. The repercussions for people go well beyond NASA's workforce. Academic institutions nationwide depend on NASA funding to support investigations and compensate grad students. When disbursements stop due to shutdowns or fiscal trims, whole projects can crumble. Faculty struggle to compensate their staff. Learners see their stipends vanish halfway through their programs. Years of hard-earned knowledge and specialized skills dissipate as experts exit the discipline for good. Stephen McCandless, a UV astrophysicist at Johns Hopkins University overseeing NASA-linked sounding rocket projects, noted that the upheaval has altered financial planning for resource access. He's sought urgent university aid merely to cover the upcoming launch, and he's among the fortunate at a well-resourced powerhouse. Lesser initiatives at underfunded schools lack any buffer. At the same time, global collaborators observe with apprehension. NASA's joint ventures with the European Space Agency on ventures such as Mars Sample Return and the Artemis Initiative entail firm commitments and divided expenses. If NASA abruptly alters or scraps these endeavors, it erodes long-forged alliances and tarnishes the U.S. as a dependable ally. Arguably, the gravest harm lies in eroding confidence from the public and stalling scientific progress. Exploring space demands patience over the long haul. Projects require years or even generations to conceive, construct, deploy, and carry out. Halting a spacecraft en route to another world and resuming later simply isn't feasible. Postponing a Jupiter voyage by 12 months won't hold the celestial lineup in place. Orbital dynamics ignore fiscal timelines or partisan agendas. Once the flow disrupts programs axed and revived in cycles, skilled individuals departing without successors, the harm multiplies. Each aborted expedition means a breakthrough foregone. Each departing specialist erases lifetimes of insight. Each closure demands arduous reconstruction of drive from the ground up. Still, optimism lingers. The space sector is pushing hard in response. Demonstrations have occurred near NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C., where staff and advocates call for complete financing and a halt to the reductions. Bipartisan legislators, especially those from areas hosting key NASA sites, have resisted the executive's plans. Both chambers of Congress have advanced spending bills surpassing the president's ask. As of early October, however, no deal is set. The key issue remains. Will this pushback suffice? Will lawmakers reclaim their constitutional oversight, advocate for increased federal funding, and oppose any budget reductions that could undermine America's dominance in space exploration? The question remains whether citizens will urge their elected officials to safeguard the organization responsible for the Apollo moon missions, the resilient Mars rovers, the groundbreaking Hubble and James Webb space telescopes, along with years of breakthroughs that have broadened our collective wisdom and ignited wonder across generations. At this juncture, NASA finds itself at a pivotal turning point. One direction promises ongoing adventures, groundbreaking research, and sustained U.S. supremacy in the cosmos. The alternative spells gradual erosion, scrapped projects, eroded skills, and the frustration of observing rival countries pull ahead while we lag behind. This decision falls not to researchers or technicians. Rather, it rests with lawmakers and administrators, a number of whom may never witness the fallout from their choices. Meanwhile, those who have devoted their careers to unraveling the stars helplessly see their efforts torn apart incrementally. We're talking about October 2025 here. Unseen asteroids zip by unnoticed. Promising hints of extraterrestrial biology remain iced over on the red planet. Unidentified aerial phenomena show up in defense videos without solid answers. Our star surges into its last burst of solar activity. Celestial wanderers hurtle our way from the void. Meanwhile, China launches bold ventures backed by firm goals and reliable resources. An entrepreneurial firm constructs the mightiest launch vehicle ever devised, even as the public entity that once landed people on alien soil fights just to stay operational. The cosmos pays no mind to our fiscal arguments or partisan bickering. It persists in its timeless rhythm, unconcerned if we opt to observe, investigate, venture forth, or merely avert our gaze and act as if the stars hold no relevance. Yet they do hold immense significance. Each breakthrough we achieve, each puzzle we solve, each enigma we decode enriches the entirety of our shared insight and serves as a vital nudge that we belong to an immense tapestry far beyond our individual lives. And in this very instant, we risk losing sight of that fundamental reality precisely when it's essential to hold on to it.